Did you call bank? I called game.
What's up, Pack Nation? It is Pack here, and in today's video, I'm talking about the 10 brand new players they have added for NBA 2K20. Now, there have been 10 players that have been added into the all-time teams, and there's also a couple players that were added into the historic teams I'll talk about quickly. I'll mention those real quick. Those will be the honorable mentions. Before this video starts, be an OG, join the Pack Nation, and subscribe. And I gotta be honest, when it comes to this list, there is not a lot of big names. Don't be expecting Ray Allen. Don't be expecting Charles Barkley. It's a lot of players that I personally didn't even know existed until now. But a lot of these guys did amazing in their NBA careers, and they have been added into their respective all-time teams. Let's get this video started. Some of these players include Ryan Hollins, who is a 75 overall for the Clippers, the player that everybody loves, and everybody loves to hear his opinion on First Take.
Kobe Bryant couldn't fill, or Michael Jordan fill LeBron's shoes. The impact that he's had.
They call him an interior force. That's hilarious. Tiago Splitter has been added back into NBA 2K as a 78 overall, considered a finisher. But they removed Manu Ginobili, so that's not really what we wanted. It's like the opposite of what we would want. And then the entire 2006 and 2007 Wizards team are brand new players, besides a couple players. So Antoine Jameson is new. Antonio Daniels is new. Ethan Thomas is new, Deshaun Stevenson is new, Roger Mason is new. Literally all of them are brand new players added. This whole team is new players added for 2K20. But now let's talk about the all-time team players in this video. At number 10, we have Bryan Winters, the Bucks GOAT. He is a shooting guard for the Milwaukee Bucks. 85 overall, considered a 3-level scorer. He was a guard balling out. His stats were 16 points per game, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists for his entire career, which is honestly really solid stats for someone like Bryan Winters. And obviously, he deserves to be on this list. He's considered the 4th greatest Bucks shooting guard of all time, and that's why he was added into this list, even with Paul Pressey and John McLaughlin. Bryan was a 2-time All-Star in his NBA career and also looked like the Geico caveman. Now at number 9 on this list, we have Jeff Malone, who is an 86 overall for NBA 2K20, considered a mid-range finisher for the all-time Wizards team. He is an 86 overall with the most interesting hairline in the game. Now, Jeff Malone is considered the 3rd greatest shooting guard of all time for the Washington Wizards. He was obviously the player at the time with the Bullets, but still considered even with Larry Hughes. And the only shooting guards considered better than him were Phil Chenier and Bradley Beal. After that, it is all Jeff Malone. He was a baller. This guy averaged 19 points per game for his entire career, which is actually really big. 3 rebounds a game and 2 assists for his entire career. Amazing stats for Jeff Malone, and definitely deserves to be added onto this all-time Wizards team. Jeff Malone was a 2-time All-Star, and not only is the hairline upsetting, but his face looks like he's just seen something horrible. Now at number 8, it is Norm Nixon for the Los Angeles Clippers, an 87 overall slashing playmaker for the team. To be honest, I didn't know there was more Clippers players that needed to be added into the game, to be completely honest, but yet Norm Nixon was someone that surprised me. He was actually really good for the Clippers in the 80s and balled out for them. Here's some of the stats for his career: 16 points per game, 3 rebounds, and a ridiculous 8 assists a game for his entire career. 8 assists your entire career, that's an insane amount of assists. Considered the 4th greatest point guard of the Clippers, which may not be the greatest, accomplishment, but still, to be considered to be on the all-time team of any NBA team is impressive. This dude balled out for most of his career. Sure, he didn't get anywhere with the Clippers for most of his career, but still, he did amazing for them and stayed with them for a really long time. The only point guard considered better than him was Ron Harper, World B. Free, and also Chris Paul. Still, Norm Nixon is on this team with a really cool beard and deserves to be on this list. Norm was a 2-time NBA champion, not with the Clippers obviously, but still he was a 2-time NBA champion, and there his face scan looks pretty solid. Now at number 7 on this list, it is Larry Bird wannabe Kelly Tripucka. Now Kelly is an 87 overall, 3-level scorer, considered a shooting guard for the Detroit Pistons. Now, the Detroit Pistons have a lot of championships in their franchise career, have an amazing amount of players. The fact that you can enter this team as an all-time player is a really big deal. When Andre Drummond is the worst player of your all-time team, that's not bad at all. Kelly Tripucka is considered better than Andre Drummond, and even with Blake Griffin and Bill Laimbeer, Kelly Tripucka was a serious deal, just as serious as his mustache. Dude averaged 17 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists for his entire career, and I completely get why Kelly is added into this game. He was a great player for the most part for the 80s and even the 90s. Kelly was a baller. Kelly was amazing, and he's considered the 4th best shooting guard on this team. Kelly was a 2-time All-Star in his entire career. Now at number 6 on the list, it is 88 overall, Otis Birdsong, one of the coolest last names in NBA history. Now, Otis Birdsong is considered the 2nd best shooting guard in Kings history. He is considered as good as Mike Bibby and Vlade Divac, which is a big deal. So is Peja. The only shooting guard considered better than him was Mitch Richmond, who was amazing. So he is the bench point guard for the all-time team. He was a slashing playmaker. His stats for his career was 18 points per game, 3 assists, and 3 rebounds for his entire career. 18 points per game is a lot to average for your whole career. He was a great player for the Kings, and he's also on the all-time teams for the Nets as an 86 overall. He's the only player on this list that is on 2 all-time teams. Otis Birdsong was the real deal. Otis Birdsong was a 4-time NBA All-Star in his entire career, and his face scan looks pretty solid there. Now at number 5 on this list, it is Joe Caldwell, an 88 overall for the Atlanta Hawks, a two-way slasher, played back in the 60s and was an amazing player for the Atlanta Hawks. He is considered the best shooting guard ever for the Atlanta Hawks, which is a big deal. Atlanta Hawks have been a franchise literally forever, like they have been in the league for a long time, and yet he is an 88 overall, the best shooting guard for the franchise ever. That's a big deal. In his career, he averaged 16 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists for his whole career, and was a legend for the Atlanta Hawks. Joe Caldwell was a 2-time All-Defensive Player, 4-time All-Star, and made it into the 1970-1971 All-NBA team. However, Joe Caldwell's face scan is actually the worst I've ever seen in 2K, and it looks like they actually penciled in his beard, and not only that, he looks like Anthony Mackie. Now at number 4, we have Fred Brown, who is also an 88 overall, an offensive threat for the Seattle Supersonics, but now on the all-time Thunder team. He was a point guard for the Supersonics, 88 overall. Played in the 80s and also 70s. Averaged 15 points per game, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists for his entire career. And yet was just the 5th greatest point guard of all time for the Thunder. The Thunder have had amazing point guards throughout its franchise history, but still is added on this list because Fred Brown was just so good. Now with Fred Brown, he looks pretty solid in his face scan, or at least okay, and he was the NBA champ in 1978. Now at number 3, it is Larry Kennan, or Kenan, not sure what his last name is, but it's Larry Kennan, 88 overall. Two-way mid-range finisher for the San Antonio Spurs, played most of his career in the 70s and also 80s. They have added Larry into the game, but they removed Manu Ginobili, so obviously, what's the point, right? Considered the 3rd greatest small forward of the Spurs history, besides obviously George Gervin and also Kawhi Leonard. Still, Larry Kennan did amazing for the Spurs. Averaged for his career a crazy 17 points per game, 9 rebounds and 2 assists. 9 rebounds for his entire career, and 17 points is really big deal for Larry Kennan, and that's why he was added onto the all-time Spurs team in this game. Larry Kennan is a 5-time ABA All-Star and did amazing in his career, and that face scan is looking at least okay. Now at number 2, it is Freddie Lewis, who is an 89 overall, considered the greatest point guard in Pacers history, and considered the 4th greatest Pacer of all time. Obviously Reggie Miller isn't on this list, so the 5th greatest Pacer of all time in Freddie Lewis. Now Freddie Lewis was a point guard slashing playmaker, averaged 19 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists for his entire career. 19 points per game is a crazy amount of points to average for your entire career, and that's why he's been added onto this list. Freddie Lewis played in the 70s and also 60s and was a force for most of his career, and that's why he's on this list. Freddie Lewis is a 5-time ABA champion, 4-time All-Star, and his nose is very poorly done in NBA 2K20. And finally, at number 1, it is Cliff Hagan, a 90 overall on this list, the only 90 overall on this list. And Cliff Hagan was on the all-time Atlanta Hawks, the 3rd greatest small forward of all time, but the 5th greatest player in Hawks history, which again, for the Hawks surviving for so long, that's a big deal. 90 overall, two-way, three-level scorer, which is a ridiculous description, could do everything apparently. Cliff played in the 60s and also the 50s with the Hawks, or St. Louis Hawks at the time. Won a championship with them, 6 All-Star appearances. Cliff Hagan was no joke. And his hairstyle is the same in the 50s as I have it now. So what does that say about him? But those were the 10 brand new players added into NBA 2K20. I know that not a lot of them are big names, but which ones are you happy about? Leave it in the comments below. And which players do you think they need to add? Let us know. If you like this channel, give it a sub, and I'll see you guys next time.
Did you call back?